Hey guys, GC is speaking here, and today I thought I'd bring back a little segment known as Scary Story Friday. Except this isn't Friday, but it is a scary story I'm going to be reading to you. So yeah, and also I apologize if reflection gets in my glasses, but in order to read I kind of need my glasses. I'm going to be reading one of my short stories from my book that I published last year at about this time. And I'm going to read you my favorite story out of all the stories. And I really like this because it calls to me, not only because I wrote it, but because, I don't know, it calls to me. So let's begin. The story is called The Mind Captor. I have been called many things in my life. Crazy, mad, a freak, awkward, and silent. But I have never let any of these name callings get to me or warp my brain. So how have I let this person that I have never spoken to get to me like this? Not a word has been exchanged between us, nor have we ever been introduced. But yet I have let him get into my mind and taunt me with the way he smiled, the way he held himself, or the way he talked. Let me begin on where I first ran into this man. I had walked into the pharmacy one day to pick up a prescription, when in front of me was this man. He picked up his prescription, and I quickly glanced to see the drug he picked up was for severe anxiety. He slowly turned, and he was looking towards the ground, but he had a maniacal smile on his face as he passed by me. I tried to look into his eyes, but he kept his head low. And after that day, this man was always on my mind, continuously taunting my mind. The next encounter was at my doctor's office. I entered the office, and this man bumped into me and ran out the door. I again did not see his entire face, but just his smile. I signed into the office, and that's where I saw the information I needed. The man's address was listed beside his name. I quickly memorized it before the nurse could pull away the sign-in sheet. I only had one thought on my mind about what I was going to do. The first night, I drove down his street and found his house. It was a somewhat fancy house, but looked like it lacked upkeep. I parked my car across the street and watched as figures inside the house moved from room to room. I turned my car back on and drove back down the road. As days passed, my visits became more frequent. I scoped out his daily routine and came to find out he had a live-in maid who took care of certain things for this man. For the first several days, I just watched idly from my car. But as days grew into weeks, I ventured out and would stalk around the house, mostly late at night, watching this man's nightly routine. One night, as I ventured around the house, I discovered the back door was unlocked, and knowing that the maid and this man was asleep, I decided to make my way into this house. I slowly creeped through the rooms until I came to the staircase, and ever so gingerly made my way up the stairs. I continued down the hall, and I went to the door in which I knew the man was asleep behind. My hand slowly reached out and quietly turned the doorknob, ever so slightly, until I heard the mechanics unleashed from their bondings. I slowly pushed the door open, and there was the man lying in the bed, shielded from me with his covers. I stood there and watched for several hours before I decided to leave, but I would find my way back in the house several more times. Again, I wondered to myself, why I had such a fascination hatred for this man? A man that suffered from a lot of the things I suffered from. This man who had such recluse that when he did venture out, he rushed back home. I had no idea what kept this man in my mind, but I knew what I had to do to get him out. After a week of nightly visits to this man's room, I decided to finally do the drastic measures that had to be taken. Again, I slowly made my way to the back of the house and entered through the back door. I again took the path through the house I had grown accustomed to and made my way straight to the room this man lay in. I made extra caution tonight of all nights to take things slow. My hand grabbed at the doorknob, and I even opened the door more slowly than I had the other nights I had visited. I crept into the room ever so slowly. I stood right beside his bed, and all I could see in the black of the night was the faint outline of his body in the bed. I steadied my breathing and pulled the blade from my pocket and raised it into the air. As I began to come down with the blade, I heard the man gasp as he caught the flash of the moonlight on the blade. He went to jump up out of bed and grabbed my arm, and we played with the blade for several minutes. I finally drew my fist back and gave one good punch to the stomach, causing him to lose his grip on my knife. I plunged the blade into his throat, and he let out a most horrifying scream, causing me to wince in pain, but I continued on and slit the blade through his throat, getting splattered with his blood. Through the screams, I hadn't heard the door open, and I heard another scream coming from the doorway as the light switched on. I looked back at the maid as she collapsed on the floor from shock. But it would be me who was in shock as I dropped the blade to the hardwood floor upon finally seeing the man's face. I slowly recognized it as my own. So, now you can understand why. Hopefully you can understand why. That is my favorite story I have in this book. I can't explain to you why it's my favorite story, but I don't know. It's a story that I've written. I would say that it pulls inspiration from Edgar Allan Poe's Telltale Heart, stuff like that, and I think that was kind of the setting I was going for with that, and the creepiness vibe of that, but I wanted it to have its own huge twist and stuff, and so I think I definitely created that. And to discuss the topics of that story, it's, in the end, you're finding out that this man has killed himself, technically. So pretty much what it is his personal struggle with his inner demons that are being his mind captor. He's stuck in his own mind. And the only way out of his mind was to destroy himself. I know that's very dark and very, like, oh my gosh, that's like really, horrible. But that's the kind of twist and turns I was going for in that story is here's this person struggling with themselves, but didn't even recognize themselves. Yeah. That's pretty much what that story is kind of about, is they struggling and they didn't recognize who they were or who they had become. And so I hope you guys like this story. If you guys want me to read another one of my stories or maybe one of my poems for next episode or next video of this, leave a comment down below or leave a like or whatever you want to do. And if you guys want to like this video, you can like it down below. If you guys want to share this video, share the channel. Sharing is caring. And I will see you guys all in the next video. Bye!